If you've got kids, you're going to want to send them out of the room now because once they see this, they're never going to shut up about it. Welcome back and thanks for joining me for another episode of How the Hell Are You Still Married? I saw one of those COVID-19 death counters on the internet and I thought, damn it, I want one of those. So I set to making one and then things just kind of spiraled out of control. And this is what we ended up with. I'm calling this device a GPIO. I hope that acronym's not taken already. It stands for General Purpose Information Orifice. What's that, Mr. Spock? Show them how it works. Well, of course. Each one of these keys is programmable to go fetch some piece of information from the internet or wherever the hell you want to get it from and display it on the orifice here. So if we press the first one, the light goes on to tell you it's going to get it, and it'll give you the US COVID-19 stats. Gives you the cases, the deaths, and it keeps track of how many deaths there have been since you last pressed the white button, which is handy because this number is frickin' hard to remember. And then you'd have to actually do the math to figure out what the change was. So that does that. Green is, the weather. Yes, 9 degrees right now, highs and lows, very simple stuff. Red button will give us top 5 searches on Google. Yellow is, the location of the International Space Station at this particular moment. So it goes and fetches the GPS location of the space station and then corresponds that with some place on land. I don't know where the fuck that is. Cabo, I don't even know. Let's see. Cabo Verde, I guess, is the country. Never heard of it. Sorry, Cabo. I don't know what to tell ya. And finally, the last one, is the top blog post on Hackaday. So, yeah. Now, remember, each one of these is programmable. So if you do not like the assortment of information that this thing is bringing up, you can go ahead and change it. How handy is that? Now, this thing is completely portable. It is battery operated, and that's why the backlight goes off after 30 seconds, is to preserve that battery. There's a switch on the back to turn it on and off, and a little charging port on the side. Looks like a very tiny beaver got in there and made a hole. Yeah, not very... I should have actually printed that with a hole in it, but I didn't, so whatever. Okay, so that's the tour. That's the external tour of this. Let's have a look inside the magic box, shall we? Oh, a little disappointing. I was hoping for like a glowing crystal with some wires attached. Oh well, what are you gonna do? So the command and control of this little device is this. It's an ESP32. It's somewhere between a Raspberry Pi and an Arduino. It's got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built in, but it's not quite as powerful as a Raspberry Pi. These are fantastic though. I quite like these little things. You can also get 8266s, I think, which are similar. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's an older version of this or a cheaper version. I don't know. Anyway, these are cool. I like them. So I wrote the software for this in Micropython, which is just a slimmed down version of Python for these little devices. And that is not, if you buy one of these off the shelf, you're not going to get that interpreter on there. It'll be the C++ one that works with the Arduino IDE, etc., etc. So you can flash MicroPython onto here. It's actually super easy, maybe too easy, because at one point I wanted to back out of the whole thing and it was way too late. I don't know how to go back to the C++ one, actually, so we're stuck with that one for now. Oh well. So once you've got this thing flashed with the Python interpreter, you have to transfer files, and you can do that with, a couple of ways that I know about. One is a program called Ampy that's made by Adafruit. It's a command line utility that transfers files back and forth. It does a few other things as well. And there's something called RShell. When I started dicking around with this, I was using Ampy, and the command line's a little cumbersome, so I thought there's got to be a GUI out there for this. And of course there wasn't. At least I didn't think there was for Linux anyway. So I decided, hell, I'll just write one. Except the problem is I haven't written a GUI since like the 90s when I was working on OS2. So, wow, that was a bit of a learning experience. But I got one done, and if you want to use it, I'll put a link, wonk wonk, and you can go download that from GitHub. It works pretty good, I'll say. It works okay. The other option is RShell, which is also a command line thing, but it's got a REPL, REPL, I don't know what it's called. It's like if you just type in Python, it'll give you a command prompt. Well, it's that command prompt. So that's also kind of handy to have, and actually tend to use our shell a little bit more than the Ampy. So that's this. We also have a button array here, and there's nothing special about these. These are momentary buttons. I put pull-up resistors on there, but I think this actually has them built in. You just have to tell it to use them, and I didn't, so you might be able to avoid that step when you're setting up your buttons and using one of these. And what else? The battery charger thing, I got a couple 18650s here, and this is a little charger module that plugs in there and charges these batteries. So it is portable. It's got some outs here for 5 volts, out on the other side for 3.3 volts, and also a USB out. If you just want to like plug that directly into there, you could do that as well. The batteries actually come from a dead laptop battery, and I say dead because it seems like it's dead, but if you get your OLFA out and carefully, remember these are lithium ion batteries, remove the casing, you can get a fistful of 18650s, and you just test them, like charge them up and test them. You can find out which one was bad, and then you'll be left with a whole bunch that are good. So hopefully, anyway, I can't guarantee it, mind you, but in a lot of cases it's just one cell that goes bad. We also have the LCD display. This is a 20 by 4, so 20 characters wide and 4 rows long. I started out with a 2 by 16, I guess, 16 by 2 display, but just, there's not a lot of characters there. So this one seemed a little bit better. And I actually did do the OLED, the tiny little OLED display, like all the big kids on the internet are using, but this for old people is just way too freaking small. I don't need to be squinting to look at something like that. So this worked out well. And although there were drivers or libraries for the 16 by 2 display, there wasn't any for this. So I sat down and tried to write a library for this, and I got something together that's pretty rudimentary, but it works fairly well. Again, if you want that, it'll be down there. These are pretty ubiquitous. You can find them on eBay. And so if you got one of these, there's a library for it. Now, what else do we got? The 3D printed case. Oh, in this fine wood filament finish and the glossy black cover plate. I bought a 3D printer. I'm not proud of it because it's a little bit like cheating somehow, but I love it. So it's just fantastic for so many things. And I use it way more than I ever thought. You do need to learn a little bit of 3D printer modeling software. For Linux, the Blender seems to work really good. It's free. I don't know what else there's out there, but yeah, there's a bit of a learning curve there, but once you get that down, you're good. You can make tons of shit that you never thought you'd be able to make. Okay, that's basically it for this. Now, although it seems like there's lots of busy work going on inside here with all the web scraping and whatnot going on, this thing's actually dumb as shit. It's not doing anything but looking at the buttons for presses and then displaying some stuff on the screen. This little computer runs a command line version of Linux. It runs headless, which means that, no monitor or keyboard or mouse or anything. It's just plugged into the internet and into the mains, and that's it. And I use it for a file server, web server, and it talks to the LoRa gateway on my roof, if you're familiar with that project. And if you're asking yourself, what the fadoodle does this have to do with anything? Let me explain. This is the program that does all the grunt work. It's written in Python, and it runs on that little Borg cube all the time. Primarily, it is monitoring this socket, this port here, 8099. You can pick whatever you want. And it just listens on that and waits for something to connect to it. And the thing that's connecting is that ESP32. And all it does is send a little message across that port. Like, for example, button 5. This program reads that message and then will respond appropriately. So in this case, it says return COVID stats. So there's a little function down somewhere here, COVID stats. And all that does is scrapes the internet for that information, creates a 4-line string, because our display is 4 lines, and then returns that string to the ESP32, and all it does is display it. So it's not doing any thinking at all, that ESP32. All the brains are right here in this program here. You know, I honestly can't decide whether this thing is awesome or just a piece of shit. I mean, I think what it's got going for it is that you can program all of these buttons from the program on the server. You never have to open this up again. It'll just, you know, it's just a dumb terminal. It's a VT100 with a really crappy display. I was also trying to think of, like, what else can this be used for? And I thought, well, you know, if you're playing D&D, and I know you are, each one of these could be programmed for a dice roll, and it wouldn't be that fakey pseudo-random number you get from Python. You could actually go fetch an actual random number from the internet, from random.org or something, and display that. So if you got to roll a d20, press yellow, and it'll actually give you a true random number. And I'm sure there's got to be other applications for this, but, you know, I'll leave it to your imagination to figure out what else to do with it. Or maybe it just should be hucked in the bin. I'm not really sure. So I appreciate you indulging me on this little project. Hopefully you found something interesting or useful in there. I don't know. If not, who cares? You can't go anywhere anyway. Thanks for watching, and damn it, go wash your hands. Cheers.